Hello and welcome to Dark Dreams Podcast, Episode 5.
Elder Whispers by Dominic Cassiola.
The blast came within inches of my face, burning so red hot I could feel the heat singe my beard. I turned my head to identify my pursuer, but alas, I could only see spots of light. The bastard had used incandescent shield on himself, so I could not get a solid visual on him. I spun on the spot and continued running, jumping over a downed trash can and a pile of refuse. I nearly lost my footing, but caught myself at the last possible moment, only to crash into the side of the alley wall. The bones in my left shoulder crunched. I know that will hurt later. If I survive long enough to see a later, that is. I rounded the corner. All the lights on the street went out. This was trouble. This is what happens when you steal from the wrong clan. It didn't matter, though. Not really. The artifact I had lifted needed to be taken, and I was the only one left to do it. The Red Claws had killed off everyone else. I was the last. The only way I was ever going to see my brothers again was to remove said artifact from Red Claw's possession. 20 days have already passed since my brothers had been taken out, one by one. 5 of the most powerful mages the worlds have ever seen were dead, and I was still alive. The weakest of them all. Looking around the dark street, I concentrated on my surroundings. Taking in the buildings and care was important. Elder taught me that. Lifting my left hand and holding it out in front of me, I felt the warm glow in my palm. I pushed out a burst of energy that enveloped around. Now that protection was cast, I was ready to go on the offensive. Just then, I heard a shuffle of feet behind me. It was kicking the trash I leapt over moments ago. "Save yourself some pain, Mr. Cinch, and toss it over. Maybe if you act quickly enough, your death won't be too painful." He had caught up to me. Nowhere to go, and nothing to do now but retaliate. Elder always said, defense first, then you can destroy your enemy greater. "You assume I fear the words of such a feeble wizard," I chided, hoping to provoke him into making a mistake. "You are nothing more than a boy waving a stick. You may as well pull a rabbit out of a hat, you incompetent fool." I could tell by the slight twitch of his hand that I had accomplished my goal. Instantly, I knew that I could take him out with ease. The simpleton was using a defensive hand to cast offensive magic. "I am not the fool, Mr. Cinch. I didn't go after the strongest clan in these worlds on my own. You are messing with a group of immensely powerful mages that have proven you are no match for. Just ask your dead brothers how strong we are. Despite my grief over losing my brothers, I had no anger. Emotions lead to mistakes, and mistakes lead to death. Elder had taught me that as well. I cracked a smile and crossed my arms, egging him on. Great and powerful mage. You are no mage. You are a hopelessly trained thug with no knowledge or understanding of how that toy in your hand even works. The fact that you rely on it proves you are nothing but a novice. Weak? Weak, am I? The Red Claw screamed. Let us see how weak I am when I am holding your lifeless corpse in my hands. Just as I assumed, he threw his left hand in the air and brought down his wand. A huge arc of fire blasted out and came rushing towards me. I stood still, knowing the protection I had cast would easily parry any of his basic attacks. Fire hit my protection with an enormous explosion, setting off car alarms and shattering the windows of the nearby shops. Tell your toy maker that he needs to put a little more power into his next batch. I think yours is lacking in any real strength. This caused my foe's face to turn as bright red as the fire he had just cast at me. If I'm so weak, why did you run in fear of me? Answer me that, Mr. Cinch. I smiled again and shrugged my shoulders. Simply a cat and mouse game. Unfortunately for you, you are no cat. I clapped my hands together and sent out a thick gust of wind that knocked my enemy to the ground. As he attempted to rise to his feet, I whipped my trench coat around my body and vanished on the spot, reappearing silently behind him. That is one of many things that one who depends on a wand is incapable of. As he stood upright, I kicked his wand from his left hand and wrapped my arm around his coat. Squeezing not so gently, I whispered into his ear, "You are weak. You depend on a stick, a creation of another, with another's power." "Nothing compared to my brothers," I said coldly in his ear. "The only way you could overcome them was to attack like a pack of wolves in the night. The only regret about what I am about to do is that you won't be here to feel my brother's wrath upon their return. I am nothing compared to you, and you are even less than me." Choking slowly, I applied a little more pressure, enough to bring him to the brink of passing out. Right as I felt him starting to give up, I weakened my grip, placed my hand an inch from his temple, and unleashed the force I had been building inside. I looked directly in his eyes, devouring his fear. The Red Claw thug could feel the power as I let it go, but only for an instant before his face exploded into a stump of deep red blood and bone. I let his body unceremoniously crumple to the pavement. I took a few steps to where his wand had landed. I picked it up and snapped it in two. "You are nothing compared to my brothers. Nothing." I checked the inside pocket of my coat and felt the artifact resting safely inside. 20 days have passed since they died. 10 more to get everything in place before it's too late. 10 days and I may never see my brothers again. I whipped my coat once again and vanished on the spot.
I say every house in America should have an electric chair. And every man just once in his life should sit in it, just so that he can feel the power of millions of gallons of electricity flow through his veins. I got an electric chair, that's all I need. You get an electric chair, Sheldon, you don't have to worry about the audience. You get an electric chair, you can tell them anything you want, as long as it's real. You get yourself an electric chair and they'll sit there all night long. Kind of a funny idea, sitting in an electric chair and doing a show. Well, think of the therapeutic value of an electric chair and all the money it is. Yes, an electric chair in every home.
The Electric Chair, a show about horror. ElectricChairShow.com.
An electric chair. Wow.
The Creature in the Crevice by Eric J. Gunnard.
The creature was conceived one night under a white moon, and born some months later when the white moon again hung in the sky. The moon was more of a parent to that thing than its own progenitors. It shone down on the creature every night in comfort, and the creature would lie on its back staring in wonder at the soft light above.
The beast that bore the creature left it in a rocky crevice as soon as it fell, bleeding from between its legs. It was the spawn of an orgy of frenzied shades that howled as they savaged each other.
The mother abandoned it and did not look back as she lurched away. The creature did not know this. It knew only that it was alone and frightened. It knew the glowing orb high above watched it throughout the night, like a benevolent guardian. The creature drank rain that fell upon it and ate insects that scurried into its mouth. And in this way it grew in the crevice. As the morning arrived, the creature became frantic. Watching the moon slowly vanish, it cried out to the moon, pleading that it not leave him to be hurt by the other light. The other light shone golden, unlike the light of the moon that nurtured it. The gold light burned and blinded. The creature hated that gold light for that and hissed at it throughout the day. When dusk at last began to fall, the creature felt a strange warmth in its heart, knowing the moon was returning to shelter it from the bad light. It felt comfort, simply knowing it was watched over by something that loved it. Larger things began to fall into the crevice and onto its mouth. Reptiles with many colors and animals and hooves and fur. The creature learned from them and discovered that sight came from eyes, as did expressions. The eyes of those that saw it and fell into its mouth were filled with surprise, terror, and pain. It came to realize then the moon high above must be an eye, because it showed emotions as it cared for the creature. The creature watched the changes of that eye for many nights and learned. When the eye was round, it was excited. When the eye squinted like a bow, it was upset. When the eye was half closed, and on those nights, so too was the creature. Two young boys played amongst the rocky outcrops of the surrounding badlands, pretending they were soldiers. The shaman preached never to play in those lands, but the boys paid him no heed. The boy leading the way was Saul.